Hi there, and welcome to a brand new episode of The Road Less Taken. This is the weekly web series from Nexus Consulting, where we are in conversation with people who've made unconventional career choices and excelled at them. My name is Venki Srinivasan, your host. Today I'm going to be in conversation with someone who, like many of us, I'm sure, dreamt of being in the world of sport when he was growing up. He was an avid sports watcher and sports lover. However, he went on down the conventional path, did a top-tier MBA, joined the world of finance before he decided to take a plunge. He joined the glitzy, glamorous world of IPL, joining the Sunrisers Hyderabad team when they were set up in 2012-13. And in 2019, he took over as head of cricket operations, team manager, and chief of staff for the Delhi Capitals IPL team. Our guest for this episode of The Road Less Taken, Srinath Bhashyam. Hi Srinath, welcome and great to have you on the show.
Hi Venki, very good to see you. How are you doing?
All good. I wanted to ask you, this is exciting times for you. The IPL seems to be upon us finally.
Absolutely, Venki. I think it's been a shot in the arm for all of us. I mean, the last 4 months have been pretty difficult, but the announcement has really been great for everybody. Through preparation right now, we are in the process of actually preparing to move to UAE and host the IPL. So all preparations are underway as we speak, and we're really excited.
Fantastic to hear. Fantastic. I'm going to actually begin this conversation by dialing you back some years to probably when you were growing up and ask you whether cricket was always in your blood. Did you play the game competitively? Did you always follow the game when you were a kid? Were you out there all the time?
Yeah, Venki. So I grew up in Chennai when I was a kid, and you know how the milieu is in Chennai. I mean, cricket is a craze in that city. When you have summer holidays, you're out there, just taking your stumps and bat out and just playing in the hot sun. And for me personally, I think I got introduced to the game of cricket courtesy of my father. My father was a big cricket tragic. He used to watch every single match, watch it ball to ball and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he used to wake me up in the morning to actually watch matches in Australia.
The Australia matches and the West Indies matches and such.
Yes, exactly. And those memories are still like imprinted in my mind where, it's a dark room and, it's a lot of silence and then you can hear the sound of the ball on bat.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, I can still vividly remember those images.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's when, the cricket bug really bit me. What really helped is that I had a whole bunch of cousins who were also very into cricket. They used to actually play cricket and go for coaching.
Okay.
I used to go for coaching and play cricket for my school as well. And what we used to sit and, whenever there were family get-togethers, we just get together and, watch cricket matches and then have arguments after the match about, what really happened and, have arguments about favorite players and all of that.
Yes.
So, they talk about knowledgeable Chennai crowd, right? So I guess that's when, that's really when I started, started thinking about the game, about even in the technical aspects of the game, because a lot of them used to go coaching.
Right. And then, of course, you went on from an education perspective to, blaze a fantastic trail. You went to IIM Ahmedabad, the topmost business school in the country. You were an Aditya scholar. While you were studying and when you kind of graduated from IMA, did this thought of a slightly unconventional career option in something like sport, did that ever cross your mind at that time?
At some point of time in your life, when you're like probably in high school, you need to take a call as to whether you want to pursue sports seriously or pursue academics. That's a question that is confronted by most people, I think, at that particular point of time in life. So I would say that I possibly chickened out and took the safer conventional path of pursuing academics. I probably didn't give a lot of thought as to whether I would be able to forge a career in sport at that point of time. And quite honestly, I don't think there were too many.
There was no career, right? Yeah. Beyond a player, there was really no career. Yeah.
I just kind of went through the motions. I mean, you knew that there were certain schools that were good and you aspired to get into them, get into an engineering course and then potentially go to B school after that.
Right.
And then even in B school, there's a lot of peer pressure, to be honest. And then there are certain conventional careers that are sought after.
Right.
So you probably don't give it so much thought. But back of my mind, I would be lying if I said that I did not harbor any thoughts or ambitions of wanting to do something in sport. That was always there. But you didn't really get those kind of opportunities
Right.
in the school. So
Right.
my attitude was just do the best that you can, and then maybe figure something out later. So that's pretty much how it panned out.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you left B school and joined, like, the world of high finance, private equity,
Right.
all of that. You were in Mumbai and working in this high pressure financial world. And then kind of it was pretty much, would you call it an abrupt switch, turned on and off type thing when you made the transition? Was it well thought out? How did that whole process pan out for you?
I worked in private equity for some time, but I quickly realized that that was not something that I was really passionate about. I didn't get up every morning, thinking about the stock market and stuff like that. So I was always on the lookout for such opportunities. At that point of time, I was actually doing some research into the world of analytics, because I felt that that was an area that sports could really lean heavily on.
Right.
So I thought about potentially forging a career in analytics. The thought was to potentially get into sport at some stage, but I wanted some experience in analytics. So I made a switch to an analytics career at that point of time. I think what really helped Venki is the advent of IPL in 2008. Kind of revolutionized the entire sporting landscape in India, and just in terms of opportunities for professionals, like me, because you had a lot of corporates actually owning teams, and obviously they wanted to run the sports teams in very professional manners, and there arose the requirement for professionals like myself, and constantly on the lookout for opportunities. And it was pretty much serendipity actually. In 2012, I kept knocking on a few doors trying to see if there would be some opportunity, and in 2012 I think the Sunrisers team was looking to set up from scratch.
Right.
And I'd heard that they were potentially looking to hire somebody. So I got a contact, and I pretty much cold called him a couple of times. He was a little skeptical about whether I'd like to make this kind of a switch.
Right.
I called him 3-4 times. And then finally, I told him that I'm willing to actually take the flight down to Chennai and meet him. He finally relented because of my persistence.
Right.
And then I went and met him, and one thing led to another, and they seemed to be impressed with what I had to say, and my passion for sport.
Right.
And they gave me an opportunity to join Sunrisers at that point of time. So I'm like eternally grateful to the owners, the management, and the CEO at Sunrisers for taking that chance on me at that point of time.
Right. So all of us, most of us who watch IPL, watch it as a casual fan. We see the glitz, we see the glamour, we see these games happening with lots of crowds, cheerleaders, fireworks, all of that. Tell us what happens really in terms of running an IPL team behind the scenes.
Like in any other business operation, I think there are various aspects to an IPL franchise. You're talking about stadium operations. I think a lot of people don't realize what kind of a logistical behemoth that IPL is in terms of just putting it together all across India. There are so many stakeholders involved in terms of, there is the BCCI, there is the state association, there is the franchise, there's the government, there's the police, and all of them need to come together to actually successfully host 7 home matches for a team in the respective cities, right? So there is a dedicated stadium operations team that actually, is in charge of just making sure that all of that happens seamlessly. And obviously, the end of the day, you're looking to deliver a seamless fan experience, right? Because ultimately, it's all about the fans who are coming to the grounds and watching the matches, and they're paying top buck to actually, watch their favorite teams.
Right.
So you're trying to enhance the fan experience as much as possible. So that is a very important aspect of the IPL, which is seldom spoken about because a lot of that happens behind the scenes.
Right.
Right. And then you're talking about cricket operations. You're talking about cricket operations where essentially you're talking about the auction, right? There is a cricket operations team that works very closely with all the support staff. And, there is a year-long scouting process when you're looking to actually pick players who you think might fit the bill for your team. Right. So,
and for this year-long scouting process, you actually end up sitting and watching like loads and loads of cricket throughout the year, right? From leagues in Bangladesh and South Africa and Zimbabwe and everywhere.
Absolutely, Venki, because you don't know where the next big player is going to come from, right? And you want to be aware of all the players who are, going to be represented in the auction, right? You're talking about certain X factor picks in the auction that have kind of changed the fortunes of the franchise, right? There are many such names that you can think of. So I think it's important to get your scouting process right, because close to half of the work is done at the auction table, because you need to have a really strong team to actually stand a chance of doing well. If you don't have a balanced team that you put together, you don't have a good enough roster, then it's kind of difficult to actually expect success consistently during the tournament.
But do you go to an auction with multiple scenarios in your head, because you can't get all the players that you want, obviously?
Absolutely, Venki, because the beauty about the IPL is the cap, the salary cap that is imposed. I think that kind of ensures that there is some level of parity maintained in quality across teams, because you have only so many crores to play with. So it's not like you can end up picking all the marquee names, right? So because of that dynamic, you are forced to do very deep research and figure out, maybe some youngish players who you think might turn the corner in 2-3 years, or some undervalued players who you think that might not go for big money, but they can actually, perform a particular role for your team. Or you think about it, if a person has done well on the international scene for a couple of years, there's a very good chance that his price is going to be fairly high, right? You cannot rely on a strategy where you're just picking all such names, right? So you need to have your strategy in place. And like you rightly said, you need to have plan A, plan B, plan C. Sometimes plan C also doesn't work. So then you got to think on your feet at the auction table, because you cannot get, all the players that you set out to get. That's that's the reality of it, right? So you need to have like backup options and backups to backup options and so on and so forth. There's a lot of planning that goes into just the auction strategy. Like you do a lot of prep work, and you try to simulate and try to figure out what other teams would require, and hence what kind of players they might want to pick. So
in that sense, you would say like a sabermetrics has come into cricket with something like this?
Yeah, I'll say that, Venki, because things are getting very scientific. When T20 began, people thought it was a hit and giggle format.
The
evolution of T20 cricket from 2008 or IPL from 2008 to 2020, things have got so much more scientific. And we are only talking about the auction here. Now, on the auction, obviously, there is those 2 months where, you need to actually get together, you need to gel as a unit and perform, in order to be successful at the tournament. There is a lot of strategy that comes into play, and oftentimes, making the right decisions during the course of those 14 league stage games often makes a difference between whether, you consistently make the playoffs or you just miss out, by, 1 or 2 games. It's a lot about, because it's an optimization exercise. You can play only 4 overseas players. Oftentimes you are picking like squads of 20 to 25 people, most of them who are good enough to make it into the first 11. So it's a lot about figuring out who is in form. It's a lot about figuring out what the opposition is and what their strengths and weaknesses are, and hence
where you're playing,
what kind of conditions you're playing under. On-field strategy, where obviously the coach and the captain work very closely with each other, and the captain is an important aspect of the team because he's actually executing all the strategies on the field. And it's a lot about decision making under pressure. But, you might make plans, but ultimately, when you're under pressure on the field, then things can slightly go for a toss. Then you need to think on your feet and come up with an alternate scenario. Just to give you an example, like before a match, you sit and do a lot of homework and figure out, what are the matchups that can work out? What are the strengths and weaknesses of a particular batsman? Or if you're a batsman, then you're trying to look at video and figure out what are the type of slower balls, or what does a bowler do under pressure? What kind of fields that he operates with, and all of that. So all that prep really helps you in decision making under pressure. So if you know that this is what is going to happen, it gives you that extra second, so that you don't have to think on your feet, when you're under pressure. That's where preparation and homework really comes into play. And every team in the IPL actually does that. And data can be massaged to give you variety of
to tell you whatever you wanted to tell you. Yeah.
exactly.
But let me ask you an immediate follow up on that. I mean, you have done a lot of this analysis part and use that to make or provide guidance for decision making, because you can't really make the decisions, but you certainly want to give input into those decisions.
Correct.
But you're in a team where there is a superstar as a captain. There's a very accomplished, possibly former player as a coach. There are a bunch of people from across the world who've played cricket at the highest level. And you come in as a quote unquote outsider and try to give them these inputs. Does that, how does one resolve a situation like that? I mean, how does that pan out?
At the start of it, I must say that it is an honor and a privilege to be working with all these superstar athletes and very, very accomplished coaches who are legends in their own right. But obviously it takes a little bit of time to break the ice with each of them. But once they start talking to you, I'm sure they'll be able to realize whether you're talking sense or not. And once, ultimately it's about adding value and trying to increase the probability of success of the team, right? And once people recognize that you're trying to contribute to the team's success, things become a lot easier. Things definitely become a lot easier. The onus is on you, obviously, to bridge that gap and break the ice with everybody. And increasingly, Venki, I think there is a lot of acceptance for analysis and data. It's not like, maybe in the 1980s or 1990s where, things were not so scientific. And a lot of coaches are actually very data savvy and like to know, what are the matchups are or what the numbers say. So that really does help. The fact that there is increasing acceptance to, doing a lot of this homework.
So having seen all this, would you say that is there one magic formula, magic mantra that an IPL team can follow to be assured of, not maybe winning the title, but assured of a greater level of success?
I can't say that there is one single formula, but I think it's a combination of things, Venki. I think the squad that you assemble goes a long way in helping you achieve success. So you see this word bandied around a lot. People talk about having balance. I think having a balanced side is really important in the IPL because you don't want your side to be lopsided, either in batting or bowling. Then you're kind of then depending a lot on the toss decisions going your way. Beyond that, obviously, those 2 months of IPL are also really important because you need to play together as a unit. You have people coming from different countries and different cultures, all spending just 2 months. It's very different from international cricket because international cricket, you're spending close to 8-9 months with the same set of people and largely from your own country. So the culture is very similar.
All from the same country.
Whereas in the IPL, you have people coming from different places. So it's important for everybody to get together and have like a good team atmosphere and have that camaraderie. And because there is enough pressure already in the IPL, right? So this, Venki, that it's every team is looking to win. You're definitely going to have certain stretches where you're going to lose 1 or 2 or 3 games in a row.
Sure.
The important thing is to put that behind you and focus on the processes and look ahead.
And it must be very difficult getting because, like me, there are a few million or more armchair experts out there after every game who are tweeting or putting out saying, you picked the wrong guy, you did the wrong thing after the toss, you batted somebody wrong in the order, whatever. And, do you or do the players really kind of read all of that? And do they kind of get shaken by that?
Honestly, I think, from what I've seen from experience over the last 6-7 years, a lot of it is white noise. Because everybody will have their opinions about what is right and wrong. And they might be right. I mean, you cannot say that all strategies that you're devising and implementing are going to be absolutely right. You're definitely going to make mistakes as well. So the important thing is to learn from that and move on, right? In the current day and age with social media and Twitter and Instagram and all of that, I mean, there could be a chance that you're exposed to like criticism and stuff. But the important thing is to have some equanimity, not get affected by it because you realize that you're putting in your best effort, right? Beyond that, you cannot do much more. And pressure is so much higher for the players, right? I mean, imagine what they're going through. And a lot of them are like pretty young in their life, right?
Right, exactly.
Realize that I just ask a lot of people, like, think of yourself when you're 22, 23, 24.
Yeah, correct.
They are and these cricketers are exposed to such kind of pressure, like at the biggest stage, and every move of theirs is scrutinized. But IPL is like a marathon and not a sprint. It's a 14-game tournament. And one thing that's often not spoken about is how physically challenging it is, right? Especially when it's happening in India.
Right.
Sometimes matches are rat-a-tat-a-tat, right? So you're playing one game in Delhi, then one day gap, then you're playing in Chennai, and maybe one day gap, then you're playing in Bombay.
Yeah.
It takes a toll on the players as well. So mentally, sometimes you can be really fatigued, right? Like, it takes a toll on players and the support staff. So it's important to not put additional pressure within the system.
Right. So what you ultimately, you, like many of us at the core of it, are a hardcore fan, right? And you entered this industry. What would you say have been maybe a couple of your most memorable moments over the last 7 years that you've been in this space?
I'd say I can think about 3 of them. One is in 2013, the first year I was in SRH, and we made it to the playoffs. We had a fairy tale run, and we made it to the playoffs that year. We were not a very fancy team, but we put in a lot of scrappy performances and managed to make it to the playoffs. So that was really memorable. Then I'd say in 2016, winning the IPL. I mean, that's a really memorable one because that's something that's memories for life. That's something that I cannot not forget. Winning
neither can all of us fans, who support another franchise. But yeah,
but because IPL is a really difficult tournament to win because because there are 8 really strong teams out there, and T20 is a format where one bad over or 2 or 3 people have great days, and you're out, right? The third I'd say is in 2019, Delhi Capitals making it to the playoffs.
Yeah,
that was also
great.
Great. Memorable.
I also wanted to ask you the question at a much more personal level.
Just the time that you get to spend with each of these players, it's more personal. Like you start understanding, what the human being behind a particular player is, what makes them tick, and those are the aspects that I really started enjoying and appreciating and empathizing with, because a lot of the time people are very critical about, what they see on TV, but they're all human beings at the end of the day, right? And human beings make mistakes, right? So you can't get everything right all the time. So I think those aspects really do stand out for me. Just like engaging with players on a one-to-one level, talking just beyond cricket.
So I've heard you say before that one of the strongest things that has kept you in good stead in this industry is your fundamental love for cricket and the amount you watch and follow the sport and so on. But that apart, what would you say are the biggest strengths or skills that you bring to the table in a role like this?
No, I'd definitely say the biggest value add is on the cricket side in terms of just the strategic aspects of it, in terms of analysis and the analytics part of it, because ultimately you're looking to win tournaments, right? And nothing succeeds like success, right? Because you have good tournaments, then it papers over all cracks, right? That is really important. And obviously, the other thing I'd say that's kept me in good stead is the passion for the game that I have. I started off at a particular role, but because I was so passionate about sport, I didn't mind taking on additional responsibility. Usually, IPL teams are fairly small, right, in terms of the numbers. So the onus is on you to take responsibility, and you can do multiple things, right? It could be something as strenuous as doing stadium operations where you're doing a lot of running, and it could be something as fancy as trying to analyze the strengths and the weaknesses of a batsman. So I've never hesitated to do things across the spectrum.
Either extreme,
either extreme. So at that level, you take there is a sense of ownership around the team, and you don't hesitate to do anything for the team, right? So I genuinely feel I'm very lucky to have landed these opportunities and to be working in a field that I'm so passionate about.
So for viewers who don't know, Srinath Bhashyam is one of India's topmost and best quizzers, right? So Sri, how has your orientation or your approach and your alignment with quizzing? Do you think that's kind of helped you in your job in some sense? Are you able to throw out these stats or these things that you know from quizzing memory and get a step ahead of some others?
I would say get a step ahead of some others, but the fact that you have a strong memory means that you're able to remember. I tend to remember like various incidents in various matches. So you're able
Okay.
to like do a lot of pattern matching and
Nice.
potentially remember the fact that somebody got out multiple times in a specific manner. Then
Right.
the memory really does help in remembering what happened in specific matches. Right,
Okay.
that really does help. And obviously, being a quizzer means that you're very curious and interested in what's happening around the
Right.
world.
Exactly.
So that really does help you connect with people from different cultures, because
Mm.
you could have invariably read about what their country is like, and
Mm.
then it
Mm.
it really does help break the ice. You can relate to some of what they're talking about. So I think that really
Yeah.
did help me. I must say that over the last 7-8 years.
Last couple of questions, Srinath. How has you've obviously made a dramatic shift from a regular corporate job to something like this. How has family taken it, and how much has their support meant to you to be able to be very successful at this job? Because you are out for long stretches at a time, usually in this very very high pressure, very high profile, very public kind of role.
No, absolutely, Venki. I wouldn't be here without the support of my family. I can say that like on record. It's not like my wife. I'm trying to impress my wife, but this is the actual truth, because in 2012 when this opportunity came about, my wife was completely supportive. She wanted me to pursue my passions because it was a shot in the dark. We didn't know what this career entailed,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because there is no precedent of
Yeah.
anybody
Anybody having done this? Yeah.
done this. And we had to uproot an established setup in Bombay and actually move to Chennai.
Wow.
My wife is not familiar with the language there.
Mm.
She kind of gave up a fairly blossoming career in Bombay and relocated to Chennai. And her support has meant everything to me. And without her support, all of this would not have happened. And Venki, I'm also eternally grateful to my parents, because from a very young age, they've never been the types to put a lot of pressure on me and have dreams for set out for me to say you need to become this or that, or you
Become
need
an
to
engineer, become a doctor, none of that.
none of that. I think at some stage they probably realized that I was a responsible guy,
Mm.
and they let me figure things out on my own. So,
Mm.
and they've always been the types to encourage me to like follow, what I really want to do. When I told them that I was making a switch of careers, they were also very, very supportive. So, I think family plays a huge role,
Mm.
uh, especially if you're trying to choose slightly offbeat careers, because there will be enough naysayers, right? There will
Sure.
be people who will try to sow seeds of doubt in your mind about
Mm.
whether things will work out, whether you're taking a risk. Ultimately, you're relying on the people who really support you and care for you. One thing I'm really grateful to my parents for is they encourage the habit of reading. Uh,
Mm.
I think a lot of what I am today is because of all the books that I've read over the years. And I will sincerely urge all the kids out there to definitely pick up reading. It's a very important uh, skill or an important thing to have, because it just gives you exposure to so many different things, right? There are multiple distractions in today's world, but it's important to read books.
Great, great. So, as a kind of last question in this show, Sri, do you think the world of sport has come of age right now in India, and is it going to see a lot more professionals like you join the industry? And what advice would you give to anybody who's aspiring to enter the world of sport in any capacity? I mean, not as a player, but in any other capacity.
No, I wouldn't say that we've come of age. Honestly, IPL started in 2008, Winky. We are still like 12 years into IPL. We look at some of the other leagues in some of the other countries, they've been around for 100 plus years. So
Mm.
I still think we have a long way to go. But the advent of IPL has really revolutionized sport in the sense that it has shown a model for some of the other sports also to make it commercially viable for everybody and
Sure.
get corporate involvement in the ownership of teams and all of that. So you see that spillover effect across sports. It's important to not just be a casual fan. If you're interested in analytics, then try to figure out why certain things are happening in a particular match. Analyze why certain bowling changes are being made, why certain fields are being set, why specific teams are being selected, and try to actively think about all of that, or figure out why are there any patterns in specific dismissals, or does a bowler resort to a particular type of ball when he's under pressure, and all of that. So, and that's how you start thinking about the game in an analytical fashion, right? And I'd say the other thing is that, the current world, it's very easy to get access in the sense that with social media, it's very easy to reach out to a lot of influencers and decision makers. So I feel that if you have some good ideas, please do share it, on various platforms. People might tend to read it and say, hey, I mean, this is something really interesting. This is not something that I had thought about.
Very interesting.
That's really how, you can get your work across or get your thoughts noticed. And you never know, one thing could lead to another and you might get an opportunity. And it goes without saying that, it really will help if you're passionate. Career in sports is very glamorized.
Right.
I mean, it is a lot of fun, but there is a lot of hard work also that goes behind the scenes. Like I told you about.
As a sales guy, you still have your pressure to deliver your numbers, for example.
Exactly. So it's important to be cognizant of that. It's not all like hunky-dory. You need to still, it's like any other organization or business, there will be pressure. More so because it's sports, because results are black and white, right?
Yeah.
You either make it to the playoffs or you don't.
You don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that you have to learn to work under that kind of pressure.
Okay, as a last thing, Sri, you touched upon the fact that you yourself are a voracious reader, and that a lot of our a good soundbite to a lot of our younger viewers is that they should read. Would you recommend 3 books that anyone watching the show should go pick up and read?
Okay, you put me in a bit of a spot there because you give me only 3 books. I'd say Beyond the Boundary by C.L.R. James. I think that was a very interesting book because it had a very different dimension to how, it spoke about cricket and history and how they were intertwined, right? Sure. I can actually see a book, if I can scan your bookshelf, I think I can see a couple of books. I think Corner of a Foreign Field is a pretty good, interesting read in itself. Right. But more than anything, Venki, I'll say that, I'm talking about sports literature here, but I'll urge people to watch as many matches as possible, right? Be it Ranji cricket, be it a T20 game. I know a lot of people who are very interested in watching when India plays, but the interest kind of flags when, it's other countries, or maybe they're not that keen on watching domestic cricket or Ranji cricket. Specifically talking about cricket, I feel that it's important for you to watch all matches and not just highlights. Watch the entire game. Yeah, that's what really tells you the full story, and you'll be able to understand the ebbs and flows. Right.
Read as much as you can, watch as much cricket as you can, have fun, and career in sport might be waiting for you. Thank you, Srinath Bhashyam, for joining us and sharing some wonderful thoughts and insights. Very, very happy to chat with you as always. Thank you very much.
My pleasure, Venki. Thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you. That, ladies and gentlemen, was Srinath Bhashyam telling us about his wonderful journey as he transitioned from being a finance professional to being a team manager and the director of cricket operations for a major IPL franchise. If that story inspired you and set you thinking, please watch further episodes of The Road Less Taken. They drop on our YouTube channel, Nexus Consulting, every Friday. Please like, share, and subscribe. Stay home, stay safe. Until I see you on the next episode of TRLT, this is Venki saying bye-bye and thank you very much for watching.